How many people in here have ever tried to cook before? Ever been in the kitchen and cooked before? I show that. Okay. Me too. How many people in here have ever just tried to randomly put something together, improv, if you will, in the kitchen, improvisasi, something like that? I've done it as well. Now, how many people in here have ever tried to do that and it just ended up absolutely terrible? Even as a classically trained chef, I've done it as well, and it's been terrible. I've had food that I literally had to throw away. What I found, though, is that sometimes it's best if you have a recipe. A recipe will give you an effective way of cooking something and making sure that it comes out the way you want it to come out. But going a little bit deeper, I've also found that there's a term that we use in the culinary world called mise en place. You all say it with me, mise en place.
Mise en place.
It literally means everything in order. So with that, you're able to effectively and efficiently execute that recipe as quickly as possible and make sure that it comes out the way you want it to. We can use this same concept of mise en place and apply this to organizing a protest. And with that, we can get exactly what we want from that. I'm going to take you through a few points that allow us to take the concept of mise en place and have a successful protest. The first point is, you got to know your recipe. I can't cook a chicken pot pie off a shrimp Alfredo recipe. Never will happen. It doesn't work that way. You can't do it. You got to know your recipe. Know what your end game is going to be. In a protest, you have to know what you're protesting for and know what you want out of it. Know what your end game is. So if you're protesting a certain business, what you want to do is identify that your protest demands and give it to that business. So they know when they look at the financial statements, they understand that why they're missing money is because of this protest. If you have politicians, you want to write them as well so they can know if they want your vote, they can get behind you and support you in office by meeting these demands, or this is how they're going to obtain your vote. By this reason we're protesting, we're going to get behind you because of your protest. You also want to let people know why you're protesting, because people need to see, and they also can choose to support you or not. And you may have more people that support you than you realize if you let it be known of your demands. The backstory I'll use is the Montgomery bus boycott, which is one of the best protests that ever happened in America. Montgomery bus boycott happened in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, but they had a list of demands. There was 3 simple demands that they asked for. Courtesy from the bus drivers, the ability to be able to sit where they want to on the bus on a first come, first served basis, and they wanted Negro or black people to be represented in the buses that traverse in black neighborhoods. Those were their 3 demands. They knew what their recipe was. The second point that you should do is preheat your oven and also watch your food. If you're able to preheat your oven, the first thing you have to do before you cook anything is to preheat your oven. If I put food in a cold oven, what's going to happen? Nothing. It's going to be cold. It's not going to cook. So you got to make sure that your oven's preheated so it can cook like you want it to. During the Montgomery bus boycott, what people don't mostly know is that there was a lady by the name of Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old girl who first said, she was the first Rosa Parks. But it wasn't time for them to protest because she was 15, she was pregnant, she wouldn't have been the right person to put on the forefront of that. So they had to wait till their oven was preheated. 9 months later, Rosa Parks comes along and she says no, and they were able to start the bus boycott. Also, I said you gotta watch your food. Because if I put food in the oven, the preheated oven, and I walk away, what's gonna happen to it? It's gonna burn. Exactly, it's gonna burn. Just like if you put people out on the streets to protest, they're gonna burn out. You gotta have something that you can watch your oven. Every now and again, anybody ever been in the kitchen, you flip the light on, you look to see if the food's ready, you walk away, 2 minutes later, you flip the light back on, you look at it, 2 minutes later, doesn't change. So during the bus boycott, they had something called the Montgomery Improvement Association. That was an organization, and they literally had meetings every now and again, every so often, to inform people of what's going on and keep them encouraged. They didn't allow the people to burn out. So they preheated their oven, and they also watched their food. The third point is, you gotta keep cooking your food until it's done. Make sure that it's done. I know that chicken cooks to an internal temperature of 165 degrees. So as a chef, we check our food via temperature. I don't like to touch and I don't do that. I literally temp the food. Chicken is 165, ground beef is 145, fish is 140. Those are all the internal temperatures at which those foods are safe. If I pull that chicken out at 155, it's going to be dangerous to me. In a protest, in our first point we laid out, you got to know your demands. Well, it ties into our third point, because you got to know, you got to keep cooking until it's done. If you don't get those demands, you got to stay on those streets. You got to keep checking your oven. You got to keep meeting until you get those demands. Because if you stop, you'll lose credibility. And if you ever try to plan another protest, people won't take you seriously. So you have to be able to know, you have to be able to check your food for doneness and make sure it's done. The Montgomery bus boycott, it was supposed to be a one-day protest. It's supposed to be a one-day protest. Didn't work that way. Rosa Parks got put in jail. They said we're going to protest for a day. They came together, reassessed. They said, okay, it was good. Let's protest until she goes to court. They continued to protest. 14 weeks in, Martin Luther King wrote a letter to Dwight Eisenhower, who was the president at that time, and he said, Dwight, we need your help. In short, he said that. Dwight, we need your help. Dwight Eisenhower didn't respond. Now, saying he wasn't on board with it, he just didn't respond to it. So you know what they kept doing? They kept cooking their food. They kept protesting. They protested for a year. From December the 5th, 1955 to December the 20th, 1956, they protested. And on December the 20th, 1956, the Supreme Court overruled a lower court and said that the Montgomery buses had to be desegregated. Their food was done. At that point, they were able to get off the streets and stop the protest. They got what they wanted. The buses were desegregated, and they were allowed. The Negro bus drivers were allowed to work. So you got to know what your end game is. You have to know your recipe. You got to know your end game, and you got to also watch your food as it's cooking. If you take these culinary terms and use mise en place, you're able to actually have a successful protest as well. Toastmaster.